Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Made the back as I have been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one, too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play from scrimmage.
Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the show. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, and I'm your host, Russ Heltman from Cincinnati Bearcats on SI, joined very shortly by my co-host, Neil Meyer from thefrontofficenews.com. And we are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook for today's show concerning the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball and football team. We'll touch on plenty of great stuff, starting with the basketball media days this week in Kansas City. Get the top takeaways from Neil from his time in Missouri, and then we will get to a preview and prediction for the Baylor matchup this weekend. Homecoming bout against the 4-3 Bears. Cincinnati has had the betting line on FanDuel Sportsbook tighten a little bit. We'll touch on that throughout the show. And also, we will kind of tell you what to watch for tonight when the Bearcats basketball team has their second and final exhibition of the 2025-26 season against the Arkansas Razorbacks on the road in Fayetteville. We are, of course, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can wager on the Cincinnati Bearcats to take out the Baylor Bears this weekend. The line has dropped from 5.5 at the open in favor of Cincinnati to they are now just 3.5-point favorites with a -110 vig on that betting line. -168 favorites overall with a point total sitting at 67.5 points. Two defenses that are expected to have some trouble in this contest. Head to FanDuel Sportsbook to make Cincinnati your pick, and you can make sure to beat the rest of the market with even better odds by using one of the Boosting with the Boys profit boosts, or there is another profit boost as well on the availability ledger from FanDuel Sportsbook this weekend for college football. Plus, they have a specific profit boost for the Texas A&M and LSU big match on campus. That one is 50%, and I believe the others are 30% profit boosts for you to access. FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, great presenting sponsor of Bearcat Blitz right here on the Believe Network. Back after these messages. Bring in my co-host Neil Meyer now from thefrontofficenews.com. Neil, media days wrapped up for the Big 12 in terms of the basketball front. And I would say the biggest takeaway and the biggest news that came out of media days is Kirk Kriisa may not be done with his college basketball career, entering his sixth NCAA season.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about, right? When you look at how college athletics and the new NIL landscape and everything has kind of come together, you would think for a guy like Kirk Kriisa, it would have to be coming to an end here soon. But as soon as we thought that, there might be a way he might get a 7th year. So wasn't much in depth on how or what that could really kind of prevail to how that would, or what all would have to happen in order that for Kerr to get that extra year. But it was kind of funny, Russ, because I was the one who actually asked the question. I was like, Wes, like, what's it like to see Kerr's infectious personality out here running around at media days for his final go around? And Wes was like, with all these new rule changes and stuff, it might not be his last year. And he made a valid point. He was like, we all were sitting in this room last year. Well, many of us as the media members were sitting in that same arena a year ago, and none of us knew that Day Thomas could have a potential extra year of eligibility. And then look what happened. So overall, I think this could be the biggest story that comes out of Big 12 media days is that Kirk Kriisa could have an extra year, and Kerr didn't shy away from it either. He didn't go much into depth on it, but he said when we asked him, we were like, hey, like, you guys are laughing, but there's a legitimate shot where things could play out and I could potentially get a 7th year. And we asked him, we said, if that opportunity comes along, how would he feel about maybe returning for a 7th year, which I know for the people listening, they're going to be like, dang, 7 years, that's crazy. But Kerr was open for it. He was like, Yeah, why not? He said heading into year 6, he feels like he's in the best shape of his career. He gave a big shout out to Coach Rayfeld and the strength staff for the job they've done with him this offseason. So
Said he
he
was the
feels,
best strength staff, best strength coach he's been in across what
Mhm.
this is his fourth school, high
Yeah,
powered schools at that.
and he says he's in the best shape of his life. But he made a really interesting point too, Russ. He said, "Why not? Why would I not entertain it?" And goes back to the conversations about all of us was like, "Hey, like if you could present it an extra year, like, and you're like this sixth or fifth or sixth year guy, like, would you take it?" Kirk Carissa just loves college basketball, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd be open to it." He goes, "It's freaking exciting. College basketball is so." Kirk Carissa could potentially be returning for a 7th year. Who knows? There's still a lot to figure out on that. Like we said, Kerr and West didn't go into much detail on it, but could be something to monitor going forward.
Yeah, he should try to play 10 years if he can. And I mean, it's the some of the best facilities you can possibly operate in, and you're making a lot of money compared to having to go overseas to make even comparable money in the NIL landscape we live in now. So good on Kirk Reese. It'll be cool to see him come back for a 7th year if that is possible. Anything else stand out, Neil, to you from the Big 12 Media Days activity? Um, Seem like the Bearcats are kind of taking it in stride, not putting much into the exhibition,
Mm.
and just using it as some solid tape against a Michigan team that is widely projected to be one of the top 10 teams in the country and is currently sitting as the 6th best team in Evan Maya's Bayesian performance ratings with a 23.1 net rating. Houston at the top with a 28.5 rating. Good stuff by the Bearcats to show as much as they did in that exhibition.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple more things to take away from Big 12 Media Days. Obviously, Russ knows I got the chance to sit down with former Bearcat Dan Skillings for a couple minutes on and off the record, talk about a lot of things. So it was great to catch up with Dan. I know he went above and beyond for us here in Cincinnati, so it was cool to catch up with him. He went out of his way at Big 12 Media Days, per se. He saw Ryan and I walking, and he came over and introduced himself again, said what's up, asked us how we were doing. So it was really cool to see Dan, hear about this transition for him to Cincinnati or from Cincinnati to Baylor and that what this offseason's been like for him. So it's great to catch up with him there. But Russ, another big takeaway from Big 12 media days was not just in the Cincinnati aspect, but as the Big 12 conference and college athletics as a whole, was hearing most of these coaches talk about how they are able to now recruit G League players. That was so interesting to me because Kelvin Sampson did it. I asked Scott Drew about it. We didn't ask Wes Miller about it, but a lot of these coaches are like, "What are we doing here on this front?" So overall, it's going to be interesting to kind of hear that front. But for the Cincinnati takeaways, it was great to hear about Katrina Merriweather and the Lady Bearcats on the opposite side of things. Hear what their team's going to look like, roster reconstruction, what their season's been like. Obviously, the highest ranked freshman class in history. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out for them and the excitement around the program. I'm very excited after hearing Katrina Merriweather and players talk for nearly 30 minutes or so over on Tuesday. That's great stuff to hear. You can check all that out over at the front office news. We have all that up and posted. But on the men's side, Russ, I think the biggest thing that I took away, and I'm looking at the quote right here from Wes Miller, was about I asked him about the roster reconstruction. Obviously, you lose 90% of your roster from last year. And I asked him, I said, what went into building this roster? Obviously, you have a lot of international talent, guys with experience, guys with different skill sets that can do a lot of different things that can kind of piece together. And what went into building that roster? And the biggest takeaway for me, Russ, was him saying that they wanted to have a roster that they could compete in the best conference in America. And that's just about every Big 12 coach, right? When you look down at that. So to hear that kind of come out and really an in-depth answer of, hey, why did we go into this roster? Obviously bringing in guys like Baba Miller, Kirk Carissa, Jalen Haynes, the list goes on and on. But the quote that stood out for me on Wes Miller was, the goal was to build a roster to compete in the best conference in college basketball, and I think we have that across the board, is what Wes Miller said. So overall, I think that is huge, huge for Cincinnati. Despite the injury to Jalen Haynes, there was no injury update on that front. But to hear Wes Miller say and break down what went into this roster was pretty cool to see.
A lot of time, effort, hard work, and just picking through the college basketball ranks to put this roster together. Really, really interested to see how it all comes together in a couple of weeks, and we'll see how they do against Arkansas tonight, Neil. Friday night action, 8 p.m. against the Razorbacks. People can catch it on SEC Network Plus. It's probably going to be just as difficult to watch as last week's was on the Big Ten Network Plus. We'll try to find a YouTube full game review later on, and I'll try to post that on the Cincinnati Bearcats on SI for people to check out if they're unable to get access to the game this evening, Neil. But top 25 team again that Cincinnati's going to face. And obviously, I don't think Michigan rolled out really a full, healthy roster in terms of all their players, but neither did Cincinnati as well, obviously, with Jalen Haynes on the mend right now. And Jalen Celestine also was not available for that game. He is
And
back, though.
it sounds like
Yeah.
he'll be back.
He's back, and he'll be able to get some run in on Friday night. But Arkansas, pretty balanced projected team, Neil, 21st nationally in the Evan Mayakawa's rankings on evanmaya.com. And they're pretty much split right down the middle in terms of a 9.5 rating on offense and a 9.4 rating on defense. For context, Cincinnati is 28th nationally on Evan Mayakawa's rankings with a 6.2 offensive rating and a 9.6 defensive rating. Although, who knows if the 100-98 exhibition score is going to lead to any lacking defense or boost on offense. It's obviously hard to take much away from an exhibition battle. Neil, I think just continuing to share the basketball and continuing to show a modern 2025 offensive shot diet here is what I'm looking for out of this Bearcats exhibition tonight. I want to see them continue to move the basketball, and even if they don't have a high assist total, which they didn't have against Michigan, guys taking shots from three, taking shots at the rim, getting to the free throw line, and avoiding at all costs those terrible mid-range jumpers.
Yeah, absolutely. And Russ, it's interesting you mentioned the mid-range jump shot. Obviously, that was something that was asked of Wes Miller at Media Days as well. But so, Russ, I don't know if you saw the full video of the main stage press conference. I'm sure you did. So they started out press conferences on the main stage at Big 12 Media Days with coach and a select player breaking down an in-game action from a season ago. And they started this year's out with Cincinnati with a double high ball screen action for Day Thomas, where Day gets to the mid-range and knocks it down. But Wes Miller even kind of said, he was like, well, they asked him, they said, Wes, do you think this was a good shot choice? And he said, yes, for Day Thomas. He goes, we have a couple other guys who might be able to knock that down, but that was a really good shot choice there. But the mid-range is going away in just about college basketball, NBA. It's going away. You're going to see a lot of driving to the paint or the three ball. It's one or the other.
I don't want to see any of the mid-range more than 4 to 5 times a game. There is no player on this roster that should be shooting that shot. KD, or there's no Kevin Durant, there's no DeMar DeRozan. Those guys ain't walking through that door on this roster.
So it'll be pretty unique to kind of see what really shot diet will be on display tonight versus Arkansas. And Russ, if they can come out tonight versus Arkansas and start off like the first half versus Michigan, this team's going to be very fun to watch. But it's another big-time opportunity. Arkansas, John Calipari. It's going to be interesting to see what might go out and happen tonight because, Russ, for those who follow the Bearcats, obviously this scrimmage might have a little bit of a good matchup there. You have two OTE guys going back and forth who spent some time playing together and whatnot, and Sean Abayev, Malik Thomas. That could be a fun matchup to keep an eye on here. Two highly talented players. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited. It's the final tune-up game before next week's season opener. So it is exciting, and it feels like basketball season's right here.
We are so close. What, Monday or Tuesday, the 3rd of November is when the things get going. Yeah, Tuesday, Western Carolina action. So basically 10 days away from the start of college basketball season. And for context, why I say even Day Thomas should not be taking mid-range jump shots. The numbers are the numbers, folks. At the rim last season, Day Thomas shot 42.2%. On mid-range jump shots, he shot 41.6%. And on three-point jumpers, he shot a career best 40.2%. I don't even need to break down the numbers on why you should not be taking shots in that other 2-point range if you're shooting 42% at the rim and 40% from deep. I mean, 42% at the rim is horrific. We need Day Thomas to get that number up this season closer to 55%, which is right around where you should be on average. But I mean, if you're shooting 40% from deep and 41.6% from 2-point range, the math ain't math in there. Take all those 2-point range shots, extend them out further, even if that percentage on 125 attempts as opposed to 112 attempts, which you had right now, goes down a little bit. You're still much more efficient and creating more points by taking those shots outside of the 3-point arc. I mean, Neil and I are on the same page here, and the math is the math. I wish the math wasn't the math, because aesthetically, I'd like to see the mid-range jumper more. I'd like to see the fadeaway jump shot more. But I want to cover good basketball teams, and the best way for Cincinnati to be a good basketball team is by eliminating those low efficiency shots as much as possible. 41.6% is not even close to a high enough percentage from mid-range to justify taking 101 of those shots last season. Now, not all of those were just like 10 to 15 footers, a couple of 8, 7, 5, 6-foot shots mixed in there as well. But a high majority of those were mid-range shots that you just want to get out of Day Thomas's shot diet and get him closer to higher 3-point marks in terms of attempts, because like we just said, the guy can make them. Career high 40.2% last season. Let's take a quick break and get to our Baylor homecoming preview right here on Bearcat Blitz, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can bet on the Bearcats to take home the Big 12 title right now on FanDuel Sportsbook. Cincinnati currently holds the third best odds, tied for the third best odds with BYU at plus 650. Arizona State is plus 480 right now to lift the Big 12 championship trophy. In Texas Tech, the only odds-on favorite, minus 110 to win the Big 12 and punch what is likely to be a lone playoff ticket for the Big 12 this year. It would be pretty shocking if Cincinnati were able to get an at-large team in with 2 losses into the college football playoff along with their champion. All that coming up. Baylor preview after this. Previewing this homecoming matchup, Neil, with the Baylor Bears for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team. 6-1 record, 6 consecutive wins for Cincinnati. They are an absolute freight train on offense. Number 2 in yards per play, and absolutely cooking on that side of the ball. Brendan Sorsby leads the Big 12 in yards per completion, 14.4 per throw, 3rd in the Big 12 and 7th in the nation in overall passer rating, 174.4 overall. The team in general is 5th nationally in yards per rush at 6 yards a carry and passing efficiency. I mean, Neil, this is a completely balanced offense getting ready to take on the Baylor Bears as 3.5-point favorites. You see a 67.5% chance to win this game on ESPN's matchup predictor as they enter it, ranked 34th on the ESPN Football Power Index, while Baylor is 48th. And the Bearcats trying to get back even with Baylor as they lost their only matchup to them in school history back in 2023. Neil, starting on offense here, looking at this matchup, I don't see how this is going to be much different than last weekend against Oklahoma State. Baylor is slightly better, maybe 1 tier better. And if you tier out the defenses nationally into like 8 tiers, there may be 1 tier above Oklahoma State, who would be at the bottom, but it's still 7 out of 8 pretty succinctly for Baylor, who's allowing 31.4 points per game. That's 118th nationally. They're 82nd in EPA per rush allowed, 91st in EPA per dropback allowed, 119th in dropback success rate allowed, meaning the Bearcats offense is going to be able to pair together successful passing plays. Should be able to all day long with a completely healthy team right now. No issues to talk about injury-wise. We haven't even brought it up because there hasn't been any injuries all week, and there hasn't been many injuries all season amidst the new facility that they're taking full advantage of with the recovery process. I mean, I just don't see, Neil, how this Baylor defense slows down Cincinnati at all. Their point total on FanDuel Sportsbook sitting at 35.5 right now. I love that number. I would be pretty floored if Cincinnati does not hit their PPG average this season, which is 37.9 points per game, one of the top 20 marks in the country. There's just no matchup that favors Baylor here. Even when you look at the possible turnover bug could maybe biting Cincinnati, they've lost just 4 this season. Baylor's taken 7 away from their opponents. Baylor ranks 87th nationally in turnovers taken away, and UC ranks 7th nationally in turnovers given away. They're just not going to give the Baylor Bears many extra opportunities on offense here. And I just don't see how Baylor, with as bad as they've been rushing the passer, only 7 or 8 sacks this season, that is 121st nationally. Neil, this should be another field day for the Cincinnati offense, and I wouldn't be shocked if they put up another 40 piece.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Right when you look down at this game, I think this game's going to be a little bit closer than what a lot of people think, but it could be an opportunity where they go out there and they put up another 35, 40 points. I think that is a very good possibility. And I was just checking FanDuel Sportsbook. The over-under on this game is 67.5. Russ, if I'm any sports bettor, I'm taking the over in this game.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen. And on top of it, homecoming, there's a lot of things to factor into this game. But for Cincinnati, I think the biggest thing they can do right now, they control their own narrative for a Big 12 championship. If you get this win on Saturday and things go well heading into Utah and then BYU, they control their own destiny to get to Dallas here in the next month or so. So if they start this weekend, Russ, I'm going to say it right now. The team that wins this game is going to be the team that leads the game in rushing yards. That's where I think this game comes down to. Obviously, you mentioned Baylor struggles to get pressure to the quarterback. This could be a game where Evan Pryor and Tawee Walker, who have been elite this season in the 1A and 1B combo running back scheme, those guys have been great, especially the last few weeks. It's going to be interesting to see what those guys are able to do on Saturday. If they are able to go out there, and if Evan Pryor or Tawee Walker come out to the start they had versus Iowa State, Russ, this could be a game where Cincinnati could put up 30 before half. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting to see. Yes, Oklahoma State, it wasn't the best of performance per se, despite the scoreboard saying 49-17. There were still a lot of things to take away, but I do think if they can get some pressure to Sawyer Robertson, and if they can get a couple turnovers, you got the monkey off your back, you got the first interception of the season. That's what they were looking for weeks ago. You get it last week. But now that the monkey is off their back and they got that first one, could this be a week where if they get some pressure to Sawyer Robertson, could they force him into an arrogant throw or two and come away with another interception or two to kind of really win that turnover margin? But for me, Russ, that's what it's going to come down to. Turnover margin and whatever team wins the game on the ground in terms of rushing yards. Whatever team does that is going to win this game on Saturday.
I like it. Defensively on the other side of the ball, Neil, I'm going to differ from you. I don't really think it's going to come down to the turnovers or the rushing attack in general for either side. It's the big plays. If Cincinnati shuts down the big plays like they have all season, then there is no chance Baylor is going to put up 30 points in this game. And if they don't put up 30 points in this game, then they're not coming away from Nippert Stadium with a victory, given how elite Cincinnati's offense has been this season. Sure, Baylor leads the nation comfortably by like 20 yards in passing yards per game. But that's why we go to underlying analytics to get a better picture of how teams are actually executing and not just the overall raw stats. Sure, they lead the nation in passing yards per game, but they're an average passing attack. 55th nationally in dropback EPA. It's an average rush. It's average offense really in general. 58th in rushing EPA as well. But they get a lot of big plays, Neil, and that's a big reason why they are top 25 nationally in scoring this season. They have 20 plays of 30-plus yards this season. That's among the top 20 teams nationally. But once again, a horrific matchup for Baylor here, given Cincinnati does not allow big plays consistently. Only 11 plays of 30-plus yards allowed this season. Not great, but not terrible. 54th nationally. I just don't see how UC is going to give up enough of those 30, 40-yard huge plays that get them into the red zone and out of any plays run in the red zone, just running right through the red zone into the end zone on those plays. Because if they are stopped in the red zone and if they don't have those big plays that are leading to touchdowns, then they're not going to be able to score consistently. UC elite in the red zone this season and are holding teams to a 47.83% TD rate. That's immaculately good. 16th nationally, really, really strong. And they have given up some quality drives this season. UC has. They're top 20 in allowing too many quality drives, and that's a big factor for Baylor here. 53% quality drive rate from the Bears, 18th nationally, and they've been to the red zone 32 times this season. But Neil, they're just shooting themselves in the foot when they get there. 62.5% red zone TD rate. That's 70th nationally. Unless they score on 4 out of 5 red zone trips or 5 out of 6 red zone trips, something like that, I don't think the offense is going to have enough to keep pace here. Give me the Bearcats 41-28, a comfortable win, and they roll on through homecoming at 7-1 overall. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go 42-32 here at Nippert Stadium on Saturday. I mentioned going with the over. I think that's a kind of an easy lock for this game, but I think this offense is just too elite and too much to handle for the Baylor Bears right now. And if this is the outcome on Saturday, this could be an outcome where it puts Dave Aranda back on the hot seat potentially. So overall, Baylor's coming off a loss, but they could come in here, but I just don't think Baylor gets the job done versus a now healthy Cincinnati team because, Russ, we mentioned it earlier, this is the cleanest the injury report has been all year for Cincinnati. So you're back for homecoming. You know that place is going to be rocking. I'm going 42-32 in favor of Cincinnati to improve to 7-1 heading into next week's contest versus Utah.
Fun weekend ahead with hoops and football in action once again. Plenty of weekends like that over the next 6 weeks or so. We'll have you covered on all of it right here on Bearcat Blitz. Have a great weekend, everybody.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one, too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play.